of course, a bye week is not a bye week. And we'll get into some of the context about maybe some of the fears about the game itself coming up this weekend. But for the recruiting side of things, it's an opportunity to do a little bit more. So, Fitz, there's some things that happened this weekend. You get to what do you got in today's update for fans?
Yeah, it's a bye week, but obviously not an off week. I think that's the old saying there. Coaches on the road is a hallmark of the bye week. The argument about should coaches be on the road, shouldn't they be at home fixing things, is always happening. But it happened last week because there have been some rule changes where it takes some days away off the road, and that's been something that the college coaches have been fighting for a long time. Suffice to say, they don't want to go out during the season. It's one of those necessary things that they have to do. But they've really cut down. So only a few guys were out last week. James Franklin was on the road with Kenny Sanders. Didn't talk about that. Wasn't on last week to talk about when Kenny Sanders went along with him for his first day out. They dropped by Lyric Samuel in New York. They went to Scranton to see Tavian Branch, 2026 offensive lineman. And then they went down to McDonough and watched the game at McDonough. Of course, Jeff Exeter's there, but also Brendan Finney, who actually popped up at Michigan the following day. This is an obvious flip target for Penn State. It's a very important one for Penn State. They've got corners, but Finney has been a top guy for them for a long time. He's, of course, committed to Oregon, went to Michigan. Texas has been around. Ohio State's been around. A bunch of different schools have been floating there. So I would not write that one off to Oregon just yet. Penn State is going to have to lean on their relationship there because, they're not spending with Ohio State. They're not spending with Oregon. They're not spending with Texas. Maybe Michigan. Maybe that's one that you can throw some hope in there. But Kenny Sanders went down there. He's of course a McDonough grad. Last week they hit the road. Of course, late in the week. They do their practice fairly normal, but kind of gets light during the week or toward the end of the week. Coordinators run things. So Franklin went out once again with Kenny Sanders. They went to the DMV. They hit spots like DeMatha. Of course, LeVar Keys, 2026 wide receiver commit is there. They were at Georgetown Prep. Emmanuel Iheanacho, the 5-star offensive lineman in 2026. These aren't recruiting stops. These aren't stops where you just go and talk to the kid like you can in different times during the recruiting calendar. These are evaluation stops where you get a look at what you want to look at, pop your head in the door and make sure you're seen, basically. Franklin also went to IMG to watch IMG Mount Zion Prep. Of course, IMG has a bunch of guys. Michael Carroll's down there. I just don't see that happening, guys. I know he's an in-state kid. He's a legacy kid. He went to Miami this weekend. So, the door's not shut to other schools, but I don't think they're open to Penn State's approach.
That seems like one of those where we talk about guys from the Northeast that go to IMG and they're no longer from the Northeast. Like they are now a Southern prospect. It seems like with those guys, if you make that decision, you're probably not on Penn State's not on your radar. Is that a fair way of putting that?
If it weren't for the connections, I don't think they'd be on at all. Obviously his dad played here. Steve Wiltfong was on Josh Newberg's show on the On3 YouTube network. Thinks he's going to stick with Alabama. He says that the Bama staff had an NIL related conversation with Michael Carroll after his weekend trip to Miami. Of course, Miami's NIL is different than it was at the start. It was all just one guy, John Ruiz throwing his life wallet money at it. It's kind of righted that ship, and they're doing a good job. Of course, got Cam Ward, who might win the Heisman Trophy, so that's a good one there. Things are going well in that regard, and I don't want to say on the up and up because it's NIL, but it's more realistically feasible for Miami now. So
a little more balanced.
More well balanced. We'll go with well balanced. That works. Carroll, I think, is still going to end up at Alabama. Missouri was in on that. Of course, Missouri's been spending too. So I don't think this is a Penn State recruitment at that one. So, but he was still there at IMG. Of course, IMG is loaded all the time. They've got prospects from here to 2027, 2028 guys that Penn State has offered. So there's a lot to look at there. Also went to South Florida, saw the commitments down there. I wrote a story on Friday about Beckham Kritza, about what's going on with Penn State and Beckham Kritza. I recommend you check that out. I'm not going to talk all that much about it, except he's still not the starter at Miami Central, which is definitely the antenna's up on that one. So check that out on blueillustrated.com. It was an active week. Ty Howell was also out, but really, really cut back on those visits, because every time you make a stop, every time you're spend a day on the road, it counts against you now, which the coaches like. It's just going to be a change. So that's where they're at with that.
Ryan and I talked about that a little bit on Thursday, and talking about how strategic you have to be with the number of coaches that go, and obviously having somebody go with Franklin eats into those days. So, do you see priority in this travel schedule of these are the most important recruits, or is it more target dense areas? And so, like, we're going to see Emmanuel Iheanacho because he's in that area, not necessarily because he's a high priority player, which he probably is. But like, should you read too much into the players that they went to evaluate versus the areas they went to evaluate?
No, it's an area thing and it's a commit thing. So they're trying to hit all these commits during this evaluation period. You'll see that play out throughout the season. He'll get down to Pittsburgh at some point, maybe even be this week. Get down to Pittsburgh this week and see guys like Deshaun Purnett, Tyke Hayes, those guys. So it's more about area convenience. I mentioned DeMatha, Georgetown Prep, but also Gonzaga. Some of those the heavy hitters down there, and it's basically what it comes down to. Somebody asked about St. Francis. Well, St. Francis is kind of removed. It's in Baltimore, so it's, even though it's a Maryland school, DMV, technically DMV. Baltimore, some people consider it DMV. Some people kind of turn their nose up at that, but it's more regional. And then they went to South Florida, saw Kobe Howard, saw Beckham Christie. So it's just hitting these spots and making the most of your time on the road. And he's got the helicopter where he can hop around. He's got the jet where he can go from DMV to southern West Virginia to see Daniel Jennings and then hop down to Florida. Of course, that's a typical flight path anyway.
Of course.
So yeah, that's, everybody makes that stop in Princeton, West Virginia. So that's basically where we're at with that. I guess moving on, we got some movements in the On3 rankings. Not a big update yesterday, but still one where a couple of guys moved in the right direction. The 3-star guys, really. I don't think there was much change in the On 300. I think it's been a situation where some of these guys, some of these lower level, or not lower level, but some of these lower ranked guys may end up being some of the better players in the class. We've seen that before, obviously. A couple guys that moved up slightly. It's not going to catch much of the radar, but Tyke Hayes moved up. He's an 89. He's, of course, having another brilliant season at Aliquippa. Michael Troutman, who I highlighted last week, the offensive lineman from New Jersey, went up a point to 88. Might be the high watermark there just based on growth and growth potential, but still moving in the right direction. He's a heck of a football player. Randy Adarica. This is a really intriguing one to me. He is also at Miami Central. Had a really, really good camp workout with Deion Barnes this summer. And Penn State, I think, came away pleasantly surprised by that one. Of course, if you remember that one, he was set to commit to Miami. Miami said no. He turned around, committed to Penn State. Penn State said, okay, we can take you here. It's going to be a South Florida recruitment. Probably not, haven't heard the last of it, but at the same time, it's a quality player. And when you take a chance on a guy like that and the other school that's local says no, it kind of puts a little bit of doubt in the back of your mind. And then Kobe Howard up a point. He's at Chaminade Madonna, of course, played well on the national stage to open the season. So some guys moving in the right direction. That's what you want to see this time of year.
Yeah, and just quickly, I apologize. Michael Troutman and your deep dive into him. He's one of the guys we haven't talked a whole lot about in this class because of not only just his literal size, but also where he is in the rankings. And you mentioned him in the rankings. So what did you find, I guess, when you went and you did a deep dive on him?
He's the best offensive lineman player, high school player in this class so far. I know Malachi Goodman's the highly ranked. Owen Alicini, of course, highly ranked on 3 as well. But you put on the tape for Troutman, he just destroys people. And
fascinating. The
thing that's going to come up is I was extremely high on Mike Miranda years ago because you put on his tape, he destroyed people. CJ Thorpe, same way. Where Troutman differs a little bit, he's got the length to back it up. And he's got 33-inch arms, which sort of negate that 6'2.5" frame. 6'2", he's about 6'2.5", 290 right now. So like size is going to be an issue, no doubt about that. So that's when I say it might be the high watermark for him as a prospect. There aren't too many guys that are 6'2.5" that go high in the draft. There certainly are. You can find them. But Troutman is just a heck of a player, two-way player. DePaul, they played Good Counsel a couple of weeks ago. He was fantastic. I'm waiting for that film to be uploaded to see it with my own eyes, but I've been told by people that were there, he might've been the best player in the field there. So Troutman is one of those guys with those high floor guys. We'll see where that ceiling develops, but you certainly need those guys. I was surprised when Penn State took him just because of the trends that they've had in terms of getting bigger. Most of their offensive linemen, 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", 6'11", 6'12", 6'13", 6'14", 6'15", 6'16", 6'17", 6'18", 6'19", 6'20", 6'21", 6'22", 6'23", 6'24", 6'25", 6'26", 6'27", 6'28", 6'29", 6'30", 6'31", 6'32", 6'33", 6'34", 6'35", 6'36", 6'37", 6'38", 6'39", 6'40", 6'41", 6'42", 6'43", 6'44", 6'45", 6'46", 6'47", 6'48", 6'49", 6'50", 6'51", 6'52", 6'53", 6'54", 6'55", 6'56", 6'57", 6'58", 6'59", 6'60", 6'61", 6'62", 6'63", 6'64", 6'65", 6'66", 6'67", 6'68", 6'69", 6'70", 6'71", 6'72", 6'4" to 6'8" now with Egan Boyer.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they're big. They're big guys. And Troutman is not. He's not a big guy, but he is a bully. He is fun to watch, and he's been mauling some people in his senior year.
And if you want more recruiting content, of course, that's where you go. BlueWhiteIllustrated.com is the place for Penn State recruiting content. We have a full show of it coming up on Thursday, but don't wait. Don't wait. Get in on all that stuff right now. And also, this is something we'll be touching on just a little bit, but Fitz, while we're here, just to put an end on this is not recruiting, but our featured article today over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, feedback from Penn State's bye week practices. If you want to know what was going on, this is the information that you look for. This is what we deliver to you at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. The reason I bring it up now is because that and recruiting, that's more than $1 worth of information. Code PSU1, 2 months for $1. You can read all the information about who was at practice, how practice went, the important things they worked on this weekend, and of course last week during the bye week, heading into a very important game against Penn State that we're going to be getting to in just 1 second. So once again, for you on our YouTube channel, take the dive. Code PSU1 to get 2 months for $1, or just go whole hog, sign up for the full year at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, because then we can just talk to you forever.